I was like, most Japanese people think like that, right? She's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, but how many Japanese people really gonna donate some money to do anything about it? And she was like, yeah, you're right. Like, we don't have that culture at all. And yo, hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode 152 of the podcast. I don't know. Gosh, okay, fuck. I've been drinking. Okay. You'll hear about it in the podcast. But anyway, whatever. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. I go through some places, some things I dislike about life in Japan. Then also, I go through a list of things. Tough times in Japan is the theme of it. One of our faithful listeners, Rod, sent me a list of topics that he wanted me to speak on. I give you some anecdotal evidence, my opinion, just about what's been going on as a result of the developing situation in the world over the past year or so. So that's about it. Again, before we get started, I'll talk about it in the episode, but please please subscribe, please do all that shit. It really helps out the podcast. Thank you again for the new listeners. Thank you for subscribing. If you guys for commenting, I really appreciate it. On YouTube podcasts, I really can't see the numbers so much, but you guys that are out there who've been rocking with me, hopefully new people that's come aboard. Again, thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. Hope you stick around and rock with your boy, even though I'm kind of sauced up right now. So, all right, y'all, enjoy. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We're on episode 152? Yeah, 152 of the podcast. I'm back in the house. You won't believe it, but I got a proper wine glass. Ta-da! And let me take a little swig. The reason why I busted out a proper wine glass is because, it's my first drink in like well over a month, pretty much. I just haven't been drinking. One of my buddies, he wasn't drinking, and we were just going back and forth. I was like, yeah. I think I told you before I was doing the apple cider vinegar cleanse. So I was like, yo. But for Valentine's Day, I got a bottle of some pretty nice wine. So I was like, fuck it, let me just open that motherfucker up. I can't just let it sit on the fucking shelf for like a long ass time. So that would not be cool. So my wife got me a bunch of chocolates. My mother-in-law, she always gives me a bottle of wine every year. So I was like, let me crack that bitch open for the podcast. Even though this is gonna be like a not a good episode to be drinking at all. I'm gonna be all wasted talking all crazy by the end of this because I'm gonna really talk about quite a few heavy subjects. Also, like, I gotta trim my beard too. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like, I can't grow my beard. Like, this beard is way too long for me because like as soon as my beard starts growing, I gotta like, I don't know, like, I'm like obsessive compulsive of it. I'm like playing with the shit. When it gets long enough, I do this weird thing where like I like take a piece of hair and poke it in my mouth and then I like lick it. It's fucking disgusting. Like like I'm disgusted by doing it and I can't stop doing it. So like that's part of the reason why I keep my goat. I know big beards are like a thing now. They're in fashion, especially in the West. I moved to Japan before that, so when the clean cut little thing was a thing, but I just can't grow a fucking big long beard, man, because I'm like I spend half of my day just playing with this shit and it's fucking ridiculous. So like this is, even with people on YouTube, this is like way too long for me. Like after like several days, if it gets long enough for me to like pinch off a piece of this shit, I just become like a fucking weirdo with my facial hair. So I gotta cut. Tomorrow. I got time. I work late. I gotta cut this shit off, like, because it's just ridiculous. It's driving me crazy. So next time, I won't be this long, but like, yeah, my beard hasn't been this long, and my goatee hasn't been this long in a while, and it's literally starting to fucking make me fucking go crazy. So if you see me playing with my beard, like, my bad, I'll just drink so that I just forget about it. Got my fucking electronic memo pad, of course, this thing, I fucking love it. But yeah, tonight, this episode, we're going to get into some shit. Before I do, if you haven't done it before, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I've noticed some YouTubers say that as well. People listening on audio, please, again, stars, comments, wherever you can. It really does help with the algorithm, attracts people to the podcast. On YouTube, we picked up a few other new subscribers. Thank you guys for joining in, stopping by, hollering at your boy, a few comments here and there. I really appreciate it. One dude really, I can't remember your name off the top of my head. I should have written it down, but if you're still listening, thank you for just a few people just saying like they really appreciate, the fact that like, good quality podcast. They like what I'm doing. They're shocked that YouTube's algorithm fucking hates my ass. But hey, I mean, I think I've said it a lot of times before. I'm really doing this as a hobby. That's how it all started. People who've been here from the beginning know, like, I know some of the best practices of a YouTuber that and podcaster that I should be, quote unquote, that I should be doing if I want to expand the podcast really, but I'm just not putting that best foot forward for a lot of different reasons. I just got other shit going on in my life, and I'm just happy, like, even if a handful of y'all and whoever else falls in can enjoy things. And I mean, the good news is that there's gonna be a stock of content for people who do discover the podcast, every time I upload something else. And I started going back and listening to random episodes too of this shit, because one of my coworkers, I think I said before, he started listening, so I started listening to random episodes. I re-listened to my Fukuoka story again, which made me laugh, so that was cool. So yeah, it's been good. All right, let me drink some fucking wine. I haven't drunk this shit in like haven't had any alcohol in my system for a long ass time. So give me a second. Let me get all sauced up. Okay, alcohol. All right. Okay. All right. So what I got for you guys right now. So Joshua, like I said, last time I pulled out a list of I believe it was places or things that I love about Japan over America. And I just made another bullshit list, but things that I don't like about Japan, that I prefer in America to Japan. It's not really so much places. Like, thinking of places was kind of tough for me. So it's just like places, just shit that I don't like, basically. Yeah, that kind of works my nerves a little bit. One thing, which I'll start with, before this, I was watching this really interesting docu-series called Hip Hop Uncovered, I think it is. It was like on FX or Hulu or some shit like that. But of course, through some internet back channels, like, I found my way. I'm not going to tell y'all how I do it, but I was able to find a way to see this shit. Stumbled upon it online. Was able to throw it on the TV. And yeah, it's just a series about like a lot of the stories of a lot of movers and shakers in hip hop, behind the scenes. I don't know how popular this miniseries is in America. Again, I'm completely out of touch with this, but a lot of the names on it, like, I'm very familiar with, just being in my late 30s, hip hop listener, since hip hop generation since like early 90s. Early mid 90s, I'd say. Let me say mid 90s, just because I was a teenager in the mid 90s. So, some of these names, in late 90s, I became familiar with, and especially with the internet, you just hear about people. So it was interesting to hear their backstories and what's going on and what went on behind the scenes and stuff like that in hip hop history and stuff like that. Especially since, these are basically street dudes and like street events, historical events that went on that I knew about, but I didn't hear it from the horse's mouth. Is really interesting. And just give me some context, just as far as significant events in hip hop history. So if you haven't seen it, aren't familiar with it, it's called Hip Hop Uncovered, I believe. I saw 2 parts of it. I don't know how much of a miniseries it's going to be, but I'm going to be on the lookout for it. Which made me think of, sorry, I got sidetracked, which made me think of one thing that fucking drives me crazy about living in Japan, is trying to watch American TV shows. Like, particularly I'll call that Netflix. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, don't fucking. I mean, if you got a VPN or whatever the fuck, I heard like this crackdown on VPN shit. I don't really know in detail. I don't really like fuck with VPN stuff that much, just because like I'm not that invested in what's going on outside. Like it's not an immediate need to get a VPN, but if you come to Japan and you think like, oh, I got Netflix, I'm just gonna watch my Netflix stuff in Japan, wrong, because Netflix Japan and Netflix America are completely different. And from what I understand, y'all got goddamn everything under the sun in America on Netflix, but here in Japan, not really, so excuse me. So like I hear all the time, like if I'm talking to people online or whatever, people are like, yeah, it's on Netflix. I'm like, that shit ain't on Netflix over here. I got 3 episodes of The Office, that premiered like a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, thank you for that shit. I mean, I understand it's also a language barrier. They need to put Japanese subtitles in a lot of stuff. I was watching this gangster movie, this Japanese gangster movie the other night. I turned it off halfway through because I already know what the story was going to be. It was alright, but then like halfway through, once they say like, oh, let's start selling drugs, you already know, the cops that start selling drug dealer storyline. The cop turned drug dealer storyline. You already know how that goes. So I was just like, I ain't even wasting no more time watching this shit. But pretty much, yeah, I just got like Japanese movies, documentaries, with historical documentaries, docu-series, and every now and then a blockbuster movie or whatever. But I don't watch too much TV like that. But compared to the amount of shit that you have in Netflix America, trust me, when you come to Netflix, when you come to Japan, TV is going to be one of the things that becomes a bottleneck in your life. If you really like watching TV, you're going to have to find some back channel websites, some ways, do a little digging in the crates to really find what you want to see. In the country, from your home country. It is what it is. Japanese TV is not a help either. Like, there's a lot of fucking food shows, a lot of bullshit. A lot of like shitty ass comedy shows. Like, just Japanese TV in general is not the best move for me. I pretty much use Japanese TV for the news, business shows, the weather, and that's about it, pretty much. And any shows about dating and Japanese socializing and stuff like that, I like to just maybe my favorite show is I don't know if I talked about it here, but my favorite show right now on Japanese TV that's not the news is this show called Aza Azatokute Nani ga warui desu ka? I think I've talked about this before, but pretty much it's just a dating show for single women. Basically like what's so bad about being calculating. And so it's a show that uses like video snippets and stuff like that to really show how Japanese women and sometimes men do to be liked. Some calculating moves that they make, and they talk about it and shit like that. It's all in Japanese, of course, but I like watching it because just see game, how the type of game Japanese women, the average Japanese woman has, so in the future, I won't fall victim to any of that shit, so I can see it coming. And it's kind of interesting for me. Just it gets a little cheesy sometimes, but sometimes I got fast forward some shit. But that's probably the most entertaining shit on TV for me right now. But generally speaking, like, compared to the massive amounts of shit on TV in America, there's definitely it gets annoying sometimes, especially if it's just something that I see on YouTube that looks really interesting and I really want to watch. It gets kind of frustrating, that's something I don't like about it. I got a lot of shit to cover, so fuck, I'm like 15 minutes deep already. I'm gonna have to run through this shit kind of quick, All right, next is weekend highways. Highways on the weekend, which is kind of a subcategory of basically anywhere that's crowded with Japanese people. And the highway, especially the road on the weekend, is crazy because pretty much, Japan's kind of like the beehive. So if you can imagine, the beehive goes on vacation, the beehive has the day off. Anywhere and everywhere that is fun, interesting, or relaxing is going to be crowded with fucking people. COVID has kind of taken a chunk out of that, but generally speaking, like the mall, outlets, hot springs, any travel destination, summer holidays travel destination, it's just gonna be swamped with people. Like you have no fucking idea. Like Tokyo Disneyland, like go Costco, my favorite place. Why do you think I only go to Costco on a fucking weekday? Because like I already know that place is a goddamn zoo on the weekend. Like if you come to Japan when all this shit is over and you want to go to Tokyo Disney, do not fucking step foot in that place, on the weekend. Don't even play yourself like that. And if you come like when schools are on spring or summer holiday, you might be playing yourself anyway. So just coming on weekdays is also not a guarantee. Summer holiday season is gonna be packed like shit. When kids are on spring break, it's gonna be packed like shit. So pretty much like Halloween's gonna be packed like shit. So you just got to deal with it. You got to wait in line for some shit that should not take that long because everybody just wants to rush in the same place at the same fucking time. Anywhere new, I put that as well. Like any new place that opens, like goddamn, a shop, a store, like a fucking Uniqlo, which has the same shit 7 days a week. Everybody wants to run up in there for their grand opening. I don't fucking understand the shit. I just, like, all the time, if this is a new place that opens, I already know. I'm like, okay, I'm not going anywhere near there for about 2 weeks because the shit's gonna be empty in 2 weeks anyway. Once the newness of the place wears off, like everyone just leaves it alone. It's really weird like that. I think just because life here is so, for lack of a better word, mundane. Life in society is generally safe. Everything is cool. Everything's chill. Like people get bored and they don't really have anything to break the monotony of everyday life. So if something new opens up, hey, let's go check that shit out. Which is fine. But in the Tokyo area, if you've got like 17 million people thinking the same goddamn thing, because everyone's gonna think the same thing, you gotta deal with like massive crowds, unnecessarily fucking crowded ass places. That's just the way it is. So yeah, that's not my favorite thing in the world. Of course, you can tell. So, but got to deal with it. So my solution to that is if I see someplace new, I say, I'm gonna go there in a month. And it's gonna be fucking empty. Or I'm gonna go there on a weekday and it's gonna be fucking empty. And most of the time it is. Like that's how again, you can move and avoid shit like that quite easily here, generally speaking. Like, or for the most part, if you just think outside the box a little bit, you'll be surprised. Like, okay, I'll talk about this. A classic example of this for me is the train system, right? And this is a generalization, but like one illustration of this for me is the train I take to work, right? The train I take to work, how do I explain this? Going to work, going to where I work, like the last train car of the train is the station I get to is kind of where the escalator leads. It's only one end of the station. So basically, if you want to get to the gate and exit the station, you're going to be on the last train car. And then when you get off, you're kind of the first closest to the exit. You go down some stairs, go down the escalator, and boom, the gate's right there, right? Now, on the weekend, the area that I work in is a very popular place on the weekends, just on the outskirts, like just on the edge of Tokyo, a residential area that's been developed over the past like 20 years to be this kind of quote unquote suburban part of Tokyo, which is accessible. So it's become a highly desirable shopping area and stuff like that, for people living just outside the city and people who are living in the residential areas on the outskirts, of town. Now, not in a bad way, but just that's how train companies are developing Tokyo. Just they're pushing more out into, the outskirts and outer parts of Tokyo into the suburbs and developing that as opposed to the city. So okay, fine. Fuck, I'm just talking about a bunch of shit today because, in my opinion, like they say, it's development chances. For my opinion, it's because the split in society that is coming more and more. And if you think about it, just because of I'm gonna get deep on you, just because of the easy money policies and quantitative easing that's been going on over the past like 10 plus years. That creates bubbles, especially in real estate all over the fucking world, as you can probably see. And especially it was just becoming more highly concentrated in Tokyo, and which that wealth effect only affects a certain amount of people who can afford to live in central, those high value areas. Oh, that was before COVID, but whatever, we'll see what happens with that. So the people who can't do that are being not pushed out, but generally seeking, greener pastures, if you will, areas of more space, lower prices, where they can own a home, shit like that, raise a family. The typical suburb effect, which is white flight in America, but is more Japanese flight. I don't know what the equivalent would be, but it's basically just salarymen, typical business workers who are just like, fuck it, let's just move to the suburbs, and I'll commute like an hour plus, to get to work. But now with COVID, they might not have to do that either. So I don't know, whatever. Anyway, why the fuck was I talking about this? Okay, see, god damn it. Okay, whatever. This is gonna be a good episode. I'm gonna be rambling, even though it's late. I work late tomorrow, so whatever, it's fine. So why am I talking about this? Oh yeah, the place. Okay, yeah, that's right. My example. Okay, so I think about this, from time to time, and it kind of struck me that the final car of this train is the ideal place to, if you want to get off and go to the station, right? Because on the weekend, the train's pretty crowded. Everyone's going there to go shopping and spend the day. It's an outdoor place. It's a lot of shit to do there. A lot of stores, a lot of shit to do. There's a lot of stores and restaurants and shopping, window shopping, eating, pretty much typical weekend family shit. But the funny thing, which I noticed, like, I think about a year and a half ago, and which makes me laugh to myself every now and then, is like, basically, especially on the weekend, the final car of this train is extremely packed with people. Like, everyone's jammed in there. I mean, not like Tokyo jammed in with people, but it's pretty much at capacity. The second to last car generally is empty as fuck, right? So, like me, of course, I get into the second to last car, the closest door to the last car, and I'm just like literally like chilling by myself and looking over and seeing like people basically shoulder to shoulder squeezed in because they think like, that's the best thing to do, when I'm literally like 5-10 feet away from them, like just a bunch of space to myself, and looking around like, there's seats open. Normally there's not seats open, but there's no one's really standing up. Like it's just night and day. But that just kind of shows you the mentality people kind of really are single-minded for the most part, and don't really think outside the box in that way. And so, especially riding the train, my trick is I look for the door everyone's going, look for the car everyone's going to, and just go one over. And generally speaking, you'll have a lot more free space than if you just like follow what everyone else is doing. Like it really is amazing sometimes. Like you'll see people rushing, squeezing in to like get into one door, and then I'll just tell my wife, I'll just pull her like, no, this next door. We'll go over literally one door, and there's like nobody standing there at all. And you just look over to your left, and you see like everyone crammed in together. It's fucking weird. So yeah, anywhere that's crowded is kind of like a bit annoying. Anywhere where I'm exposed, down there. Anywhere in public where I gotta, whip out my willy. I gotta let him hang, is kind of annoying, just because like I know Japanese people are staring at my dick. Like that's just what it is. Like everyone's gonna be looking at my dick. So if I go to a hot spring, people gonna be trying to look at my dick. I go to a public bathroom, people gonna be trying to look at my dick. Like it is what it is. Like it's not like it's not like a homosexual thing. It's just I'm not Japanese, so people want to see, oh, what does like a black dude's dick look like? This is my only chance. This is my chance. And so like, but which wouldn't bother me so much. But if you're in a hot spring and there's like 100 people there, you have 100 people trying to take the chance to look at your dick, and it's just like, it never fails. Trust me, it never fails, and it's something you just got to deal with if you're here. But whatever. Like, again, it's what I signed up for. It doesn't bother me as much anymore because I just know it's part of life here. I have a few defense tactics, work a few angles so to cut people off from trying people, get a view. Because no one's gonna be like, look over, like, beep. No one's gonna do that. But you can see people out. You can feel their atmosphere change when someone's like next to you and they're just like freeze up and they're just like, okay, how do I look at this dude's dick? Like. Without getting noticed, like, you can tell when they're plotting a caper. So I kind of know a few ways. You got to hug the plate a little bit, make sure they don't shit like that. But yeah, like anywhere where my dick is out. Oh, sorry, it's true. Anywhere my dick is out, like I'm kind of. Of course, like in America, your dick is not gonna really be out anywhere, in public, generally speaking. But in Japan, you'll be surprised how many places you're gonna be exposed around other people. Some people are cool with that. Some people are not cool with that. I generally fall into the category of people that's not cool with that, but I've just learned to deal with it, accept it as a part of life here. Again, mostly hot springs, public bathrooms, shit like that. You might think, like, again, there's no partition in your public bathroom. That's why it's kind of an issue. The Costco has them, thank goodness, but generally speaking, like, you're not going to get a partition, so you don't have that privacy there, blocking your shit. So you got someone, you're just like, that's what it is. So whatever, but okay. And one more, then I'll move on to the next topic. Oh shit. A place where Japanese people can't see me coming. Where I unexpected. Oh no, I got two more. I got one more. And where I kind of like surprise Japanese people, like generally like a velociraptor or something like that in Jurassic Park. Like, I'm here. Sorry, my son's in the dinosaurs now. But like, if I just kind of like, I'm not jumping out at them, but like, if like an elevator door is open, it's like, bingo, there's a black guy. Like, generally speaking, though, they just kind of don't know how to act. For a second, it's like, oh shit, they're here. Or like someone comes around the corner and I bump into like an old lady. Not even an old lady. Old ladies are kind of cool with it, but like, a middle-aged woman or something like that. She's like, ooh, or she's got to get her shit together for a second. So that's kind of, it becomes awkward sometimes too, because it becomes a lot. You walk into a shop that doesn't, or a post office or like a bank or something that doesn't really deal with foreign people. It's not in like a really international area so much. For example, the record scratches, and but I'm used to it, so it doesn't really bother me anymore, but it is a thing that will never go away, probably. The one thing that does bother me, I'd say, is if I'm anywhere around a crowd of young people, teenagers or young kids. It's gonna be a thing. It's gonna be a thing. Like, I think I was picking my son up from the bus stop today, actually, and there was just where his bus stop is near the campus of a really, really good school, like kind of famous university. But some kids connected to the high school, whatever, I don't know. High school kids were coming off. Of course, they're in their uniforms. It's like I get them. It's like 50 high school kids that roll up behind us, which is in America, I'll just say normally would kind of put me on edge because, generally speaking, American teenagers are quite unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. Sorry, that's just, it is, you know what I'm saying. Like, if you in the mall and you see 50 teenagers roll up on you, you can be like, oh shit, they might do something crazy. Come on, let's go over that way, but in Japan, it's cool, totally cool, right? They're gonna be fucking nice, but they're gonna say something weird. So, yeah. So I got my son, and I'm walking, and I could hear him in Japanese, like, "Oh, I thought that was, giggling. Oh, I thought he was one of our professors, ooh," or something like that. Like you kind of hear these offhand, you know, remarks from teenagers or little kids or stuff. Like if I, like, my wife doesn't really pick up on it, but like if we go to his kindergarten, for example, I got to kind of hang around my wife all the time because, like, I'm not gonna go walking into the school by myself, because especially now with COVID, I got a mask on, I'm a big black guy. Like, even if people understand I'm his dad, it's just, I already know, so, I'm just, my wife was like, "Hold on, I'll be right back." I'm like, "God damn it, what the fuck," and, I don't even bring it up around her because she'll just say I'm paranoid or something like that. So I'm just like, it's just one of those things, like, the effort in trying to get my wife to understand is more than it's worth. So I just deal with it, when my son gets older, I'm sure we'll talk about these type of things, and maybe my wife will have more understanding about it. But I don't expect her to. I'm not asking for any pity party about that type of shit either. But definitely anywhere around younger kids, I do. Especially if you speak Japanese, you hear the comments, you hear the laughs, and you just gotta get over it. I think the guy, I think it's James from the podcast. His podcast name left me right now. Again, I'm drunk, I'm wasted, sorry. But he talked about that was one of his reasons for leaving Japan was, standing out everywhere he goes, and it just kind of got to him. But I'm black, I'm from America. Like, I'll take that shit over, again, the bullshit dealing with America any day. It is just it's not my favorite thing about this country, but it's not a deal breaker for me by any means at all, and I've got more than tough enough skin to deal with it, so it's not a big deal at all. But I'd say those are the main things that I dislike about living in Japan: places, events, situations that you just gotta handle if you're gonna live here. So that's that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna refill this wine. And then I'll come back and we'll get into some the tough times in Japan, tough times in Tokyo. Let's call it tough times in Tokyo, and some of the social issues that have been popping up in Japan. Rod, I got your topic, and yeah. So give me a second, and I'll be right back. Okay. We are back in this bitch. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we go. So tough times in Tokyo, right? Well, in Japan in general, but it just sounds better if I say tough times in Tokyo. But it's not. That's disingenuous. Tough times in Japan, because it is. That's the fucking subtitle I wrote down. So I'm just sticking with that. All right. So here's the deal. So Rod basically gave me a list of topics or issues that he wanted to hear, me to speak on a bit. And he also, by the way, linked and actually did me a real solid. Thank you so much again for copy and pasting some of the information from an article that I wasn't able to pull up on my PC. But again, I'll put the link in the description. Please read that. It gives a bit of a context, probably about some shit that's going to come up as I talk. But I'm going to just run through how COVID has affected several different people with several different issues. And yeah, I'll just go off on it as best I can. I'm going to go through them kind of quick, just for time. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here. But just joblessness in general, definitely. I've noticed, anecdotally, just watching the news, TV, stuff like that, seen an increase in news about the unemployed and underemployed here in Japan. The article he gives a really good example about especially underemployment here, and the underbelly of it that you really don't really get a chance to see so much. I would say, yeah, just seeing those type of issues on TV has definitely started to bubble up. Employment in Japan is a lot higher than it is in the West in general. It's just true. Like, but But I would say like non-regular employees, like if I believe I've gone through that in a few episodes back. Again, employees that don't basically, you got Say Shine, which is a regular employee, which guarantees you a safety net, a really strong safety net, almost a guaranteed job pretty much. And anyone who's not under that category is basically out in the cold, can be kicked out in the cold at pretty much at almost any time, right? Pretty much what you deal with in your home country for the most part, pretty much. But in Japan, it's a big deal. And Japan has been trying to move away from the seishain system. Me personally, I think the government is just like, rubbing their hands together like Birdman, waiting for the chance to get rid of the system, just because it puts companies on the hook for a lot of money. They have bloated payrolls from staff that they would really like to trim if they had the chance to, but they can't because they got a lot of people who are seishain. But that kind of does hold the country back. But Japan in general is not really equipped to deal with the amount of people who are unemployed or underemployed, and especially that's been increasing because of the COVID situation. And as you know, I've been kind of fortunate enough to, not be so affected by this because I'm not seishain at all. Generally speaking, if you come to Japan, you're not going to be seishain at all. You're going to be a contract employee. At best, you're going to be, Taku, which is an independent contractor, as a possibility. And just getting a fresh start here, that's going to be kind of a lot rougher. Before, a contract employee was the standard, which gave you a bit of a leeway. At least 1 year, you knew you had a job, you knew you had a guaranteed salary, you knew like this is kind of the way things were going to be. But here, you just kind of gotta roll with it. You gotta, make shit happen. And I'm a bit settled. I'm a bit older here, so I can kind of handle that a lot better than someone who's just fresh off the boat, as I'd like to say. But just as far as joblessness in Japan goes in general, it is increasing. It is increasingly tough for Japanese people to deal with, especially because for me, the social contract here, I've talked about it before, is that like if you work hard, there's a place and there's a life for you in Japan. That's kind of my feeling, the general social contract here. If you, try your hardest and, work for the betterment of society, society will take care of you in the form of employment, in the form of a place to stay. It might not be the best place. It might not be the flashiest place. It might be a humble place, but you will have your place in society. And that contract really is not being lived up to. And basically it's a fucking illusion in my part, as far as I'm concerned. But that is the expectation. That has been the expectation up to now, especially in post-war Japan up to now. But the way the world is going, a lot of macroeconomic factors, which I'm not going to get into right now, but we're kind of reaching the end game of this system that has been existing I'm getting into it for the past 50 years, in my opinion. So Japan is going to be a casualty of this, and COVID has exacerbated that issue. So yeah, in a lot of industries, a lot of jobs, a lot of people are kind of being cut by the wayside. The pop up and another thing which is really important is Japan doesn't really have a donation culture, right? And I was talking to people about it because I've been kind of talking about this. This actually has come up quite a bit, and in my everyday conversations with people. And one thing is because Japan doesn't have a donation culture. So even though there's like me talk, you hear me talk, bringing my mother-in-law quite a bit, me and her, we have a lot of conversations about stuff, economics, and I bounce ideas off of her. We watch TV and stuff, together sometimes. And, I was in the car with her like a few weeks ago, and we were talking, we were talking about the economy and stuff like that, and of course in Japanese. And she was like, like me, I have the American. I don't fuck all that shit. Like I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. As long as I'm straight, my family's straight, whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen. So I ain't thinking about like everybody else and what the fuck else is going on with all that other shit. she's like, oh my gosh, like the amount of people like, who are homeless, and oh my gosh, this is tough, and I kind of like looked at her and I was like, just like, that's just funny just listening to you talk, because it's cultural differences and everything. And I was like, but I was like, most Japanese people think like that, right? She's like, yeah, yeah, I think so. And I was like, but how many Japanese people really gonna donate some money to do anything about it? And she was like, yeah, you're right. Like, we don't have that culture at all. And we talked about it a bit. And basically, what she was telling me is because, like, the idea of donation is kind of a bit of an unfair kind of thing in Japan. Like, Japanese people think we're all Japanese and we're all working. Again, this is my opinion mixed with anecdotal information that I've heard. But, if everyone's Japanese and everyone has equal standing in society, everyone's in the ant colony, let's say, for example, if it just as a metaphor. I think metaphor doesn't use like as a metaphor. As a metaphor, we're all in the ant colony, and we're all working hard for the survival of the ant colony. But if there are some ants who are not working but are being given resources, that's unfair, right? So just in general, by the basis of Japanese society, people don't have the inclination to help or donate or give money to homeless or help, those kind of things. It's just not a general instinct that's strong within Japanese society. They understand these problems exist, they acknowledge them, but when it comes down to actionable kind of, um, things to be done, shit gets real. Shit switches up real fast when it's like, yes, homelessness is an issue. Yes, underemployment is an issue. Okay, so how much money are you gonna give? Yeah, like the conversation switches up really fast in Japanese. It's always funny. We need to do something about it. It's kind of basically what gets said, and that's about it. So yeah, that's a general overview of a lot of these things. And let me just like kind of plow through some of these after that rant. So um again, the social safety net, if I'll refer you to Rod's article. I think, it is kind of true. Japan, there has been, especially last year, an effort to kind of throw money at the problem a bit, but I don't know the intricacies of that issue because I don't really have anyone around me who really is using the social safety net. But I imagine there are resources there, but there is that stigma or shame. Again, I'm not playing my part, I'm not pulling my weight, apparently, according to that article. So that could be an issue, self-imposed limitations, if you will, or people, preventing them from taking advantage of some of the resources in Japan, being shamed, away from taking advantage of those kind of resources that will basically keep them in the game. But yeah, that's something that, again, like it's not my fight to fight, so it's not my fight to fight. Okay, whatever. But what I mean, it's not my battle to fight. So I'm an outsider here trying to scrap for my place in the with the way things go. So yeah, so yeah, it is what it is. Suicide rates definitely have increased here. Um, from what I've heard, I believe I haven't seen any concrete numbers, but you can just imagine. Generally speaking, like I'm just watching news about people, who become homeless or relying on soup kitchens and stuff like that. A common theme is the first thing they say is like, I was thinking I should just kill myself. I think it dates back to the medieval times, samurai spirit in Japan, the mm, killing yourself is an honorable way to go out type shit. So yeah, generally speaking, like if a person again feels like they're not being useful to the ant colony, bee colony, whatever insect colony you want to use, they just like, fuck it, it's just better, more honorable if I just end it right now. Especially if they see themselves as like a dameningen, for example, which is like a useless human being. Don't use that word. Like, calling someone like a dameningen is like really fucked up. Like, it's basically like stronger than saying you're a waste of space. But that's, yeah, it is really fucked up. So you're just like, useless, completely useless as a human being. It's pretty much, I would say, the most translatable thing, it would be, and which is, pretty rough to tell someone, so just don't use that at all. That's again just bad Japanese lesson from Akil. But yeah, so if someone sees himself in that way, then next logical step, suicide comes to mind. I don't, and I imagine that has been increasing, especially if you think about, again, domestic issues, which has been going on, I'm sure, in other countries as well. But Japan, those issues generally, get swept under the rug, especially if you think about, oh shit. That's what I need to do. Let me make myself a note. Let me make myself, no, I won't put it in. Okay. I'll just talk about it. So, one of my students told me about something, domestic issues which have been popping up and things like that. And recently in the news, there have been quite a few, I think 2 or 3 stories about CEOs or of heads of companies doing really fucked up shit in the past like week or 2 weeks, actually. And one guy was, one CEO of a company, he was caught. He had assaulted a woman, which maybe he met at like a quote unquote matching cafe. So I would imagine what happened was the CEO of a really big company basically went to a hotel. He met the girl, maybe a professional lady of the night, at like a quote unquote matching cafe, took her to a hotel, probably paid her 100,000 yen, which is about $1,000 for some services, wasn't satisfied with those services. Maybe she tried to leave, I'm guessing. In an elevator, he attacked her, took her ID, took the money. It was quote her money, but that amount of money, I'm in the daytime in the hotel, I'm guessing, and she filed charges against him. So, I'm guessing like that was something there, yeah. And another CEO, the ex-CEO of McDonald's Japan, he attacked his wife with a golf club or some crazy shit like that. Like, but and there was some other story, I can't remember what it was, but basically one of my students, we were talking about it, and basically he said something really insightful that, yeah, like because of Corona, like they in the house, and they don't really have the opportunity to go out and do the things that they normally do. So a lot of those frustrations bubble over, and if you, especially if you might think like a high net worth individual, like a CEO of like, let's say McDonald's Japan, but if you think about it, because he's that high net worth individual, he's that power broker type guy, he's in meetings, he's in trips, he's doing all these things all the time. But because of Corona, he's stuck in the house in Zoom meetings, and he's got his wife there who he probably doesn't see. I mean, he's also like 20 years older than her, but he doesn't see her, all the time. Like he's probably out the door in the morning, he's coming back late at night, 7 days a week, 6 days a week. And even on his days off, he's probably going golf or doing some other shit with his friends. But he in the house. He been in the house for like a year. So that stress kind of bubbles over, and those type of incidents happen. By no means am I like making excuses for these guys. I'm just trying to put it in context. I'm pretty sure, sadly, that a lot of these incidents, domestic violence, things like that, have been increased on the rise in Japan as well. But again, in Japan, the difference is in Japan, these things are not discussed openly. They're kind of swept under the rug. So that's kind of the shameful part. Single mothers, yeah, also get really the rough end of the stick, because a lot of times single mothers, like unlike in Japan, unlike in America, like alimony and things like that are not mandatory here. So basically, it's a patriarchal system. So let's say there's a divorce where kids involved. Once the husband, who generally speaking traditionally is the breadwinner, once he cuts off the wife and the son or daughter, that's it for them. They're out in the cold pretty much. So a single mother will have to work and fend for herself. And a lot of movies and TV shows and things like that, the most miserable character is the single mother. She's got a shitty ass small apartment with a kid, and she's like working all the time, generally like in like, bad TV shows, gangster movies and stuff like that. She's working in like a hostess bar, or she's working like selling her body or doing something like that to make ends meet, to provide for her kid who's sleeping at home by themselves. Like, she is fucked up to watch. And the sad part is like some of this shit is probably true, but again, it's not really broadcast on TV. It's more like the darker side of Japan, if you will. But again, because these are not mainstream people, the social contract says you have done something wrong to be put in this situation. And there's a lot of shame. Again, one of the motivators of Japanese society, which comes into play. So, again, it's fucked up. I don't really like to dwell on it, which is, why I just try to focus on being the best father, husband, provider I can be and guide my family through all this crazy shit that's going on in the world right now. Prostitution and those kind of sex industries. Let's call sex industry workers. Yeah, when Corona started, the COVID system. The interesting thing for me that was because when like handouts, government assistance, things like that happened. I think I talked about before. Of course, the government could not be seen legitimizing legal sex industry work, which is kind of illegal, but the government couldn't be seen legitimizing it. So sex industry workers in Japan were left out of like the social safety net. And on TV, like there's one lady, she's a representative of like the Shinjuku Kabukicho sex industry workers, and she was like, "Fuck that, we need our money. You gotta help us in these streets. It's rough." Because if you think about it, you're not going to get like a happy ending like when Corona was going down last year, and you're not going to a hostess bar, and you're not doing all this shit. You're not going to Soapland. Google Soapland if you want to know what the fuck I'm talking about. I have not been to a Soapland, by the way, but just Google it if you want to. But just warning you, shit's real. Okay. Just Google Soapland Japan if you don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so like these workers, if you really can imagine the impact of COVID on like sex industry workers, like it's fucking hard out there for them, and they're already, generally speaking, like I've talked about, if you got a single mother, I'm not overgeneralizing, but for example, you have a single mother who might not be able to hold down, qualify for a regular work, a shining type job, and she's all she's got. So, she might fall into that industry. COVID comes, that's a double blow. You don't get any government support, that's a triple blow, and then you fucked up in the game. So there's a lot of people that's really fucked up in the game right now, who are on the outskirts of society in general. And, so I don't really know what's going to happen in the form of government assistance this year. I'm expecting something to come down the pipeline. Generally, how these things go, in my opinion, is after America's putting together a pretty significant stimulus package. After that happens, Japan kind of reacts, looks at what other countries are doing, gets kind of left behind, and then reacts. Japan's not the first to act generally in these type of situations, but when everyone's like, "Oh, look what America's doing, look what Europe's doing, why aren't y'all doing anything?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we gotta do something," and they just like fumble together and do some shit. So I'm kind of expecting that similar kind of thing to happen in Japan. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but there are a lot of groups, that have become quite disenfranchised because of Corona. I forgot small businesses as well. Lots of bankruptcies. You heard me talk about the restaurant industry. Lots of bankruptcies. I expect homelessness to increase. I expect violent crime to increase. I expect, just a lot of fucked up shit to go on, that split in society to go on before things get better. But again, like I say, I am very bullish on Japan for the long term. That's why I've stayed here, but there will be some pain to be felt all across the world, pretty much at some point. And you just gotta like play our hand the best way we can and let the chips fall where they may. And yeah, that's it from me. I had a glass and a half of wine, and I'm fucking drunk. Yeah, I don't say I'm drunk, but I'm fucking tipsy, like a motherfucker. So yeah. So I'm just gonna end things right there. I still gotta what the fuck? God damn it! I gotta drink this shit too, because in my mind I was like, yeah, it's fucking 2 glasses of wine. Come on, but I haven't been drinking in like over a month. This is literally the first taste of alcohol I've had in over a month, and I'm just like, yeah, right now. So let me just pack this shit up and take my ass to bed, and I'm gonna holler at y'all next time. All right, let me get the fuck out of here. Peace.